A great magician can give their audience the thrill of a lifetime, but an unlucky magician might just as easily end up drowned, shot, or buried alive, and it happens more often than you might think. The man many consider the greatest magician of all time died in 1926 at the age of 52. Prior to Harry Houdini's untimely passing, he amazed people all around the world with his astonishing escapes. Handcuffs were no match for him, and neither were straitjackets, packing crates, nor the occasional Chinese water torture cell. Sadly, Houdini's life came to an end after a nasty encounter with something far less thrilling than any of that. According to one account of the events leading to his death, the seemingly superhuman magician was looking through his mail in a dressing room on the afternoon of October 22nd when two college students asked to speak with him. One asked Houdini if he could really withstand any heavy blow to his abdomen, as he often professed. Houdini said he could. Before he could properly prepare for the trick, though, one of the students punched him 4 or 5 times. The legendary magician still performed that evening as planned, but he was suffering badly. After 2 sleepless nights, he performed one final time on October 24th in Detroit. He barely made it through the show and finally agreed to go to a nearby hospital where his ruptured appendix was removed. He died there several days later. Nevertheless, historians still debate whether he was killed by the students' punches, a bad case of peritonitis, or a combination of the two. Tommy Cooper was a comedy legend over in the UK. British audiences couldn't get enough of his magic tricks, which he intentionally performed very poorly.
He's coming down. Come on in.
The magical jokester, famed for wearing a fez while performing, enjoyed a decades-long career, but it all came to a tragic end at Her Majesty's Theatre on April 15, 1984. Many years of heavy drinking and smoking had evidently caught up with Cooper as he prepared to take the stage. The theater's crew had set up a makeshift dressing room for him off stage so he wouldn't have to climb any stairs. Fellow comedian Jimmy Tarbuck, who emceed the show and served as Cooper's assistant that evening, recalled that he looked frail as well. Cooper fell during his act and suffered a massive heart attack. The audience and Tarbuck assumed he was just joking around, as Cooper was known to suddenly improvise during his performances. Several moments passed before he and the stage crew realized something had gone terribly wrong. Tarbuck called for a commercial break on the show, which was being aired live on the BBC, before struggling to get Cooper behind the stage curtain. He was later pronounced dead at Westminster Hospital. Tarbuck later recalled, "God, that was the saddest night of my entire career." Harry Houdini may be long gone, but that hasn't stopped the wannabes from trying to mimic his most famous stunts. The thing is, though, Houdini's tricks weren't just smoke and mirrors. They were genuinely dangerous stunts and weren't designed for amateurs or even most pros. That means duplicating a Houdini stunt might make you famous, but it's just as likely to wind up killing you. In 1912, Scientific American declared Houdini's underwater box escape to be one of the most remarkable tricks ever performed. In June 2019, Indian magician Chanchal Lahiri was trying to perform a similar trick when something went wrong. Eyewitnesses said Lahiri had his arms and legs bound with ropes and chains and was lowered into the river in Kolkata. He was expected to resurface just moments later, but wasn't seen again until the following day when authorities pulled his body out of the river. According to the Times of India, Lahiri made several mistakes during his trick, including underestimating the current and wearing clothing that would have hindered his ability to swim.
In a turbulent river, it will be very hard to open the knots and locks, but I will open them.
Worse yet, Lahiri's team waited a full 15 minutes to raise the alarm. Plenty of time and then some for a man bogged down by chains to drown in the river's murky waters. The notorious magician known as Chung Ling Soo wasn't Chinese and likely never set foot in China. He was actually born William Ellsworth Robinson in New York in 1861. Nevertheless, that didn't stop him from performing magic as a Chinese man during an era when this was still considered an acceptable form of entertainment. He even spoke in a form of gibberish that he claimed was actually a Chinese dialect. Robinson initially performed as Robinson, the Man of Mystery, but his career really took off when he began pretending he was actually a mysterious Chinese illusionist. He also came up with an elaborate backstory for his alter ego. Supposedly, Chung Ling Soo was the son of a Scottish man and a Chinese woman. After they both died, he became an apprentice for an illusionist named R. He. He joined He on a tour of South America and eventually returned to the Northern Hemisphere, where he combined ancient Eastern illusions with more modern European techniques. Robinson enjoyed a successful career as Chung Ling Soo until the night of March 23, 1918. He was performing a bullet-catching trick in London, but as some sources claim, he had failed to properly clean his trick gun beforehand. Robinson took a bullet to the chest and broke character by uttering, "My God, I've been shot. Lower the curtain." He died the next day. Sigmund Neuberger was born in Munich in 1871 and moved to the United States as a child. Not much is known about his early years, but he later toured the vaudeville circuits as an expert marksman before switching to magic, moving to London around 1900 and becoming the Great Lafayette. Neuberger's signature illusion was called the Lion's Bride. It took 25 minutes to perform and involved him magically transforming into a lion. Despite his immense fame, he was also considered a misanthrope by many and was very attached to Beauty, a dog given to him as a gift by Harry Houdini. Sadly, Beauty died while Neuberger was preparing for a 2-week run at the Empire Theatre in Edinburgh in 1911. He was so grief-stricken that he predicted that his own death was imminent. During a performance on May 9th, Neuberger was getting ready for the final moments of the Lion's Bride illusion when a lamp caught fire. The stage burst into flames, and Neuberger was trapped behind a fire curtain and a series of locked stage doors. The body of his double was later discovered beside a horse and a lion used in the show. In a contrivance that wouldn't be out of place in the Prestige, the fire crew initially thought the double was Neuberger, only for the original's body to be recovered a few days later.
No one cares about the man who disappears, the man who goes into the box. They care about the one who comes out the other side.
Hundreds of fans showed up to view his coffin as it traveled through the streets of Edinburgh, and he was buried at Piers Hill Cemetery beside his beloved pet. Jeff Rayburn Hopper was only 23 years old when in 1984 he died while preparing for an escape trick at Winona Lake in Indiana. Hopper was put in handcuffs and chains before diving into the water on the morning of July 6th. This was all part of a rehearsal for a performance scheduled to take place later that day. Hopper jumped into the lake about 100 yards from the shore, and he managed to get out of both the chains and the handcuffs before crying out for his assistant to help him. Due to high winds, the assistant wasn't able to make it to Hopper in time. Tragically, he drowned in a mere 6 feet of water. His body was recovered by authorities about 5 hours later. The bullet catch is one of the oldest and most dangerous tricks in the world of magic, and the illusion often involved real guns when it was performed in the 19th century. This is how Madame DeLinsky met her maker. DeLinsky was the wife and assistant of a Polish magician, and they traveled together to the court of a German prince and his family to perform the trick in November 1829. Their version involved recruiting a group of soldiers to act as shills. In those days, loading a rifle typically involved biting open a cartridge, pouring gunpowder into the barrel, and stuffing the cartridge down with a ramrod. According to contemporary news reports, Madame DeLinsky was reluctant to perform the trick but was essentially badgered into it by her husband. She took her place in front of the firing squad of 6 soldiers, secretly removing the musket balls with their teeth. One of them reportedly failed to bite away the deadly projectile and accidentally shot her in the stomach. She died 2 days later. Being buried alive is one way to get people's attention in the world of magic, but it's also incredibly risky. The infamous escape artist Joseph Burrus learned that lesson the hard way and became a cautionary tale in the process.
He was a showman, and you never knew where the show ended and the real life took on.
Burrus had once been buried alive before in Salem, Oregon, before he arranged an even crazier stunt at Blackbeard's Family Fun Center in California. On Halloween night in 1990, he climbed into a see-through coffin outside the amusement park while dressed in a white tuxedo. He was handcuffed and wrapped in chains as well. Prior to the stunt, he reportedly told onlookers, "I consider myself a master of illusion and escape artist. I believe I'm the next Houdini and greater." In Oregon, Burrus had been buried under a pile of dirt, and he'd managed to claw his way out and back to the surface. For the Fresno stunt, however, his coffin was placed inside a 7-foot deep hole under both a pile of dirt and a 3-foot layer of wet cement that was collectively estimated to weigh 9 tons. The coffin couldn't handle the load, and it collapsed, crushing Burrus in the process. A crowd of 150 people, including Burrus's wife and children, witnessed the whole thing. Balabrega was the stage name of John Miller, a Swedish-born magician who moved to the United States as a child in 1868. He began his career at a young age and was billed as the boy magician during his youth. As an adult, he toured the world as Balabrega and soon purchased the rights to a trick that would prove to be his downfall. It involved 6 assistants who dressed as moths and would appear to be consumed by flames. Balabrega and his crew traveled to Brazil in 1900 to perform the trick at a theater there that didn't have proper safety standards or the equipment they needed, and the magician made the fatal mistake of improvising. The trick required a supply of gas to fuel the flames. Balabrega instead used acetylene, an unstable chemical that's incredibly flammable. He and one of his assistants were preparing for the show when the acetylene ignited. They died instantly.